Are the dolls in your dollhouse clamoring for some pizza? Join me today as I show you how to take some simple products like polymer clay and paint and make this wonderfully yummy looking pizza. Join me and see how easy this is to do. Alright, so we're going to put a pizza in this pizza pan we made on Trash to Treasure Thursday a few weeks ago. We're going to start out, and this week I'm going to preface this project with 2 points. Number one, I'm trying to stick to as few colors of clay as I can because I'm going to be running the same project on both the Dollhouse blog and videos and also over on my 18-inch doll blog. So if you like the 18-inch dolls, hop over to that blog after you watch the video and see how I went about changing this from a 1/12 scale to a 1/3 scale. And since I'm trying to stick with more absolute beginner projects over there, I'm sticking to as few colors of clay as I can. So we are going to use Fimo Soft in Sahara for our crust. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say is if my voice sounds odd today or if I start coughing, please excuse me. We've had a wildfire about 8-10 miles away from here as the crow flies, and it's been really smoky all week. Today was actually the first day I got up and did not smell smoke anywhere. So my voice is really taking the brunt of this. For some reason I have been coughing and losing my voice all week from breathing this smoke. So sorry if I don't sound right. So let's get on to our project. We're starting with our pizza pan. And this is the Trash to Treasure project that we did a couple weeks ago. It's the end of a box of crescent, or one of those tubes of crescent rolls. For Barbie, you can do the same exact method I'm showing you on this video. Just use the end of, like the pizza crust or the bigger biscuits or the cinnamon rolls, the big ones. So I've taken a ball of clay. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get out my chalks that I'm going to use. We're using the same colors of chalk that we do no matter what bread-like substance we make. The reddish brown, the dark brown, and of course our yellow ochre. My box of chalk is fighting with me because I forgot to take my chalk out before I started. And I have a brush. It's not my preference for brushes, but it will work. And I'm actually going to take some of this. I'm going to spread it over the bottom of my pan. And then I'm going to reach over behind myself and get a wet wipe. Excuse me. This will do two things. And I'm going to make my pizza so part of it comes out of the pan. That is a decision you need to make pretty early on your project. Do you want your pizza to come completely out of the pan? Do you want it to be partly glued in the pan and partly out? Or do you want the whole thing just in the pizza pan? When you decide that, then we can start. So I'm going to make mine, so I'm going to try and have 2 slices loose and the rest of it in the pan. So I'm starting out by pushing just a wad of clay into the pan. I want to push it and not roll it out for a couple of reasons. The main one being a pizza crust in real life is not perfectly flat usually. Usually they bubble and they, have some shape to them. So that's what I did. By putting the chalk underneath, that will do 2 things for us. It will color the bottom a little bit. Hopefully it will also make it a little easier to get our pizza out. So I'm marking off. That's close enough. And it doesn't have to be cut perfectly. I mean, when you cut a pizza at home, do you cut it perfectly or do you cut it a little bit off? Spend as much time as you need to make the cuts the way you want them. Now, we're going to pull this out, quite get to the center. And you can either use a craft knife or your clay knife, depending on what you've got handy and what you grab. All right, so now we have our pizza in our pan, and I may or may not have to glue this in later. It may pop out when I bake it, it might not, it's hard to say. So now we need to texture. We're going to put these two off to the side so I don't stick my hand down on them. And this is my dental tool, or my pointy tool as I refer to it a lot. And we're just going to use your thumb to kind of hold it down so it doesn't get all distorted. And you're just making some marks, some little holes. And then I have a brass brush. I got this at Harbor Freight. It's for cleaning tools and stuff. So I just use that to kind of help me get some texture there. And now I'll do the same thing over on this side of the cut. And this doesn't have to be perfect. And if you are going to leave your pizza in the pan, then you wouldn't even have to do this. You would just put it in and color the top. Hopefully you're seeing what I'm doing here. There. So that's that step done. Now let's get these done. So we already have a little bit of brown on the bottom. I'm going to get an emery board. The emery board is going to do two things for me. Number one, it's going to help that bottom to stay flat, and I'm going to use my thumb to support the top. It's also going to add just a tiny bit of texture, which is really beneficial. And we're just going to do the same texturing here as we did in there. And you can get as detailed as you want on this. You can spend, I mean, I've seen people spend hours doing this texture. I'm not going to do that for, number one, I don't have that much patience. Number two, that would make the video really long. Okay, let's see if I can get this back over here. And we are just going to there. And I'll texture the other one later. Now, first let's move this to here. Move the textured one over here. And I'm going to color these. I'll color that one after I texture it, but this way you can see what we're doing. So this is just like what we always do when we're texturing, when we're coloring our baked goods. And remember, most of this will be covered up with toppings when we bake. We're going to bake the pizza and the toppings separately and then put it together, because I don't use I use paints rather than transparent liquid Sculpey or liquid Fimo for my sauces. It's just my preference. Now try not to get your color in too much in there where you did your texturing. You want that to remain pretty much dough colored. And most of this color will be on the outside edge. You can concentrate most of your color out here. Alright, so I'm going to get that other wedge of pizza crust textured and ready to go, and then I'll come back and we'll make some more. Alright, so our pizza today is going to be a Hawaiian or Canadian bacon and pineapple pizza. So to make our pineapple, that'll be our first step, we are using this clay. This is Fimo Soft in translucent, or Fimo Effect, I guess, in transparent yellow. One of my favorite things they've come out with, because it used to be when I wanted to make pineapple, I had to mix together colors. Now for this one, we're just going to roll our clay out. I'm going to go a little thinner, probably down to about a 4 on my pasta machine. Tends to be where I cut a lot of things. We are going to make sure we're using the right side of the blade. And we don't even have to be exact here. We're just going to cut a little strip. Trying to find a safe place to put my clay where it won't get all dirty. Yeah, I'm still under camera. And we are going to cut little pieces. They don't even have to be wedge shaped for this. You can take the time to make them wedge shaped if you care to. It's not really important. I've noticed most times on pizza it's not. Let me grab my pizza pan. I put the pan with our in progress pizza over on my desk across the room. Come on, don't. And now I'm just dropping this. Oops, I'm not on camera. Let me cut a few more pieces. And mainly you're just looking for little pieces. They don't have to be perfect. That one of them's a little big, but it will be all right. Remember that chalk that we had on our tray from coloring our dough? We're just going to drop this down in there. We're going to use our little brush. And we're just going to kind of stir this pineapple, because remember the pineapple will brown when you cook your pizza in real life. And brush it off to the side. That's all there is to making pineapple. So let me get set up to do the Canadian bacon. Alright, so now we are going to start making our Canadian bacon. And because I'm trying to stick with just simple colors of clay, I decided to just go with a flesh light color from Fimo. It's not perfect, it's a little light, but we will doctor this up with some chalk, and it should turn out looking like a cooked, like the cooked Canadian bacon. I'm using a small round camphor cutter. I don't remember how big this one is. It's the small one. And I've rolled the clay out to about number 4 on my pasta machine. We are going to be doing something with it here. And I'm not going to do all of these. I will come back and do more off camera. We're going to start like that. I'm going to carefully move these to our paper plate. Come on. And I'm going to use a small ball-shaped tool. Not too small though. Let's see. This one will probably work. And I'm going to kind of get this a little bit of chalk on it. Because what I want to do, I want to thin these out and kind of get them kind of shaped. And it's okay if they split. That's fine, but we want to get them so they're not flat. Oops, this is not working. Let's dip this into some cornstarch. There. Cornstarch on our ball tool will help it to not stick. That's better. And we're just kind of smushing these down and making them so they look like they've curled up, because in real life when you have the Canadian bacon, it kind of curls up on the pizza usually, and that's kind of what we're trying to do here. Making them thinner, and then we're raising them up. And then we need to take some of this dust and just dust over them. And I think I want to concentrate a little more on the reddish brown color for these. And some of the dark too. Kind of mix the reddish brown and the dark brown together with just a little bit of the yellow ochre. There. Especially on these ones that worked better. There. So that's how we're doing our Canadian bacon. I'm going to make some more Canadian bacon off camera. Then I'm going to bake this according to the package directions. And all of these clays are Fimo. So they're all listed at 230 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes per 1/4 inch. And since the thickest thing I have is only about 1/8 of an inch thick, I'm only going to bake these about 10 minutes. So after I get them baked and they're cooled off, I'll come back. Now it's time to start adding our tomato sauce. I know a lot of polymer clay artists do use liquid polymer clay for their sauces. I typically don't. I don't like the way they look. And I actually started doing this long before you could get liquid polymer clay easily. So I developed different ways of doing it. Whenever I need a tomato sauce, I use Ceramicoat's tomato spice. I tried a lot of different red paints, and I like this one. Put some out on my tray. And sometimes I'll actually add red sand to it. I'm not going to today. But since the layer of tomato sauce on our pizza is going to be pretty thin, we just want it to show that it's there. And it's okay if a little bit drips over the edge here. That's fine, because remember, on a pizza, it probably would. We want a pretty heavy coat, because tomato sauce would be thick. And I probably only need to coat right at the cut edges, but I usually go ahead and coat the whole top of the pizza, just like I would when I was making a real pizza. Right up to those edges. If it wants to drip down, that's, like I said, that's fine. As close to the edge of your pan as you want. Take these guys and coat the top. Now this coat will need to dry before we go on and add our cheese and our toppings. But we do, by the way, I did wait until my clay was cooled. I've rushed a couple of times and tried to put this coat on while the clay was still warm. And I found that it didn't dry as nicely. It ended up kind of blotchy looking. So now I always make sure I have my clay all the way cold after it bakes, all the way back to room temperature. And remember, we don't paint acrylic paint on or mix acrylic paint into our clay and then bake it, because that's just not a good idea. There. So we'll let this dry, and when it's dry, I'll come back and we'll add the cheese and the toppings. Alright, so our tomato sauce is pretty much dry. There's a few damp spots, but that's okay. We can let it mix a little bit with this. The next coat is going to be our melted cheese, and that will hold our Canadian bacon and our pineapple on. Now, I use Scribbles paints, and on this size I'll probably just use two colors, the winter white and the lemon yellow. I'm going to put them on. I always start off the side. But this will need to dry before you can mess around with your pizza too much after you get everything on. Let's put some on. I like the two colors so I can kind of model it together. Then I use the toothpick. Go all the way, again, all the way up to the sides of your pizza, to the cut sides. And if it drips, hey, that's cool, because sometimes the cheese sauce, the cheese drips off your pizza. Come on. Pizza's trying to run away. And if you've got holes where the red shows, that's fine, because sometimes the tomato sauce does show. And if it mixes in, that's okay too, because sometimes it bubbles up. There. Now, we are going to take our toppings we made, and I've got let me break a fresh end off there. Just a piece of raw spaghetti. This is a great lifting tool when you're doing little tiny things. And will it work? Okay, never mind, it won't pick up today. We are just going to drop our toppings. I really would prefer to be picking them up with the spaghetti, but for some reason it's not working today. And you might find you have to push down a little bit on these. That's okay. Just scatter your toppings however you want them on your pizza. It's your pizza. And if you want to use other toppings on your pizza, that's fine. I chose this simply because they're the easiest toppings to make. There's not a lot of detail in these particular toppings. There. Put a couple pieces of pineapple on there. And we have a pizza. Now we just have to let that sit and dry. It'll take a couple of hours for this to dry all the way. Up to at least 24 hours. I would give it a good 2 or 3 hours anyway before I touched it. But there's our pizza. So the dolls in the dollhouse can have some pizza to enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this project. Be sure and check the blog post for any other details. And be sure and find us on Facebook, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.